Okay, so what is a trait? A trait is a characteristic. What's a characteristic? Characteristics are things that you do. You could run fast. You could jump high. You could throw the baseball hard. You're right-handed. You're left-handed. You've got brown hair. You got blonde hair. You got redhead. Right, Kevin? Um, so those are all traits or characteristics of you. Now you have inherited traits and you have acquired traits. Well, guess what? Throwing the baseball is not an inherited trait. It's an acquired trait. Being being dexterous and having enough coordination to be able to throw a baseball well is inherited, but being able to throw a baseball is learned. So it's a acquired trait. Having brown hair, brown eyes, big feet, hairy noses. These are all things that are inherited. All right. So how do you get these inherited traits? Well, you get them from your parents. During sexual reproduction, you get traits from your mother and from your father, and how they combine gives you your inherited traits, your acquired traits you get through growing up in certain areas, things that you do, things that happen around it. You know, I might be the best hockey player in the world, but I don't know it because I've never played hockey because there's not a lot of hockey. When I was young, there's not a lot of hockey around here. We don't have frozen ponds. We don't have 9 months out of the year. We don't have things that we push us towards that. I played baseball. So that was my thing. Um, so that's an acquired trait, which is hit or miss. What you do, what's your environment. Sexual reproduction gives you your inherited traits. You have your dad's nose. You have your mom's feet. Ooh, that's not good, Logan. You don't want your mom's feet. So different things give us the combination of your mom and dad give us your through sexual reproduction give us your inherited traits, your inherited characteristics. Now, what's a gene? And no, I'm not talking about Gene Simmons, not Kiss. This is a gene. A gene is it's a unit of heredity, and but we know exactly where it's at. It's a unit of heredity on a specific place on the DNA strand. Ooh, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so we have a DNA strand right here. We know that this gene right here, the specific gene, this is my DNA strand that is unwound. It's not twisted. So this gene right here is coded for the brown eyes that I have. Okay, now that might not be the only gene that characterizes it. It might also be this gene and this gene. All three of these genes characterize whether I have, give me the brown eyes. Or maybe they're blue eyes, but they're dominant recessive. So right now, that's all you need to know is these specific genes, these specific spots on the DNA strand tell us what they code for. We know what they code for. And if we know that this is a specific gene for brown eyes, then that's a gene for brown eyes. It codes for that specific trait. And heredity. 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 The T. I don't think that's spelled right. Yeah, maybe it is. Heredity. It is what you get from your parents. It's Logan's big old feet that he got from his mom. It's it's my brown eyes. It's Kevin's red hair. These are things that were passed on to us by our parents. These are you get from heredity. You inherit them. Kind of like hopefully you'll inherit millions of dollars when your parents die. Wouldn't bet on it, but hopefully, right? Okay. So we know that these are genes. Right here's a gene for brown eyes, this is a gene for brown eyes, and this over here is a gene for brown eye. Now all these are alleles for brown eyes. So yeah, this is a gene, this is a gene, and this is a gene. But these three together are alleles for brown eyes. So allele is all the various forms of the same gene. So These are all the same gene, but they're in various forms. They're different places on the DNA homolog. So, well, I better put that down, shouldn't I? Allele. Allele and homolog. Now, what's a homolog? All right, this is our DNA strand, correct? We talked about this being our DNA strand. So this is one chromosome, right? Now, each one of these, um, let's do this. Oops, sorry. Let's do this. This with color. This. So this one right here and this one right here. They go together. I don't like the way that one turned out. So let's get rid of it and do it all over. How's that? Uh-huh, 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 uh-huh. All right. So these two together are the homologs. The homolog is the chromosome in a pair. So these two pairs are the homologs. This and this, this and this. So I'm going to get rid of that. Humans have 24, I better do this. 23 pairs or 46 chromosomes. How many do you have? Let's see, should have learned last chapter. You have 46 chromosomes. Now, the sex chromosome. Um, they're called X chromosomes and Y chromosomes. The human female will have two X chromosomes, and the human male would have two Y I'm sorry, one Y and one X chromosome. I'll come back to that and explain to you how that makes sense in a little bit. Hang on. There's some other stuff that you need to know before we go that route. So, who's considered the father of heredity? That's Gregor Mendel. Yep. He is considered the father of heredity. He is the one. He's a monk a long time ago that actually started experimenting in the 1800s with pea plants, and he wanted to see if dwarfism, which means small, can be um, it can be masked or hidden. Okay, and what he found out is that dwarfism can only be shown if there is two of them. All right, let's see what we got here. Phenotype. We have phenotype and genotype. Phenotype and genotype. Okay, what's the difference between the two? They're obviously related. They're almost the same thing, right? Okay. Phenotype is what you can see. It's an observable trait, an observable characteristic. It's that Preston's got brown hair. Shaylee's short. Noah has a big nose. Just kidding, Noah. Um, so that's something that you can see. Phenotype is what you can see. The genotype is named for the genes that the organism has. You can't necessarily see this. You could have hidden genotypes. You could have, I'm 6'5". I could have a genotype for shortness or dwarfism in my DNA, but we don't know it because it was masked by a dominant allele or a dominant tall allele. So what's this dominant and recessive? Talk about that. Dominant. Dominant and recessive. Okay. A dominant allele, or one, a gene, is one that is expressed in the phenotype if only one copy is present. So it doesn't matter what the second allele is. All that matters is what the one is. If brown is dominant over blue, so brown-eyed people, you have you might have a blue allele in your DNA, but all you see in your phenotype is brown because it's dominant over the recessive, which means that it is only expressed in the phenotype when both alleles or two copies are of the gene is there in the DNA in the homologs. So dominant masks the recessive. It hides it. Um, there's dominant and regular height is dominant over the dwarf height, which is recessive in Mendel's pea plants. Now, how did you become a boy or a girl? Let me see. Is that part of the next chapter? Yeah, that's part of the next section. So we'll save that. All right.